You smell what the shock is flipping. Welcome to another installment of Mr. Shuck's Flipped ELA. Today we are going to take a look at a lesson to introduce our next short story, which is entitled After 20 Years. It is written by a man by the name of O. Henry. It starts on page 192 in your textbook. So the first step should be to fill in the title, author, and page number on your Talking to the Text paper. After 20 Years, O. Henry, and page 192. Now that we have our title, author, and page number filled in, we are going to take a moment to add 2 academic words to our academic word list. Both of these words are review for us. We have covered them in the past, but they work out very well with this particular story. First is foreshadowing. Again, remember to write down this word in your academic word section and to copy down the definition as well. Foreshadowing would be clues that hint at what will happen in a story. Foreshadowing is when a writer drops little clues somewhere in the text that makes us as readers start to make predictions about what will happen in the text. Oftentimes, we don't know that we are experiencing foreshadowing until we get to the event that it actually foreshadowed. So you may read an entire story, and then once you finish it, might find yourself thinking about something that happened at the beginning of the story, and that could be a good example of foreshadowing. The next word that works well with foreshadowing is suspense. Suspense is the nervous, anxious feeling about what will happen next in a story. Suspense works well with foreshadowing. It's like the hammer and the nail. So again, if we think of these academic words as tools that writers would use, if a writer is using foreshadowing, oftentimes they are also using suspense. Now that we have our academic words written in, we are going to take a look at the section entitled Do What's Right on page 192. As we work our way through this section, we will be completing a journal entry. We will be taking 5 minutes of writing time to respond to the letter from Confused and Can't Sleep. So let's take a look on page 192 in the Make the Connection section, Do What's Right. Imagine that you write an advice column for your school newspaper. One day you receive this letter from someone in your school. Last Friday, I saw my friend Lucy, not her real name, take a wallet that was left on the cafeteria table. I know she needs the money because her dad is between jobs. I don't know what to do. I want to do what's right, but I don't know how to handle this. She's just never done anything like this before. Sincerely, Confused and Can't Sleep. So in your journal entry, we are basically going to do the quick write activity that you see there on page 192. We are going to respond to this person, Confused and Can't Sleep, and we are going to give them advice on what they should do about this particular situation. I would like you to take 5 minutes of writing time to complete this journal entry. Now that we have our journal entries filled in, we are going to take a look at the Reading Skills and Strategies section, which is also on page 192. If you do not have your textbook, just follow along, just listen along at this point. Reading Skills and Strategies, Attacking Strange Words. O. Henry loved long words and fancy words. He read dictionaries for pleasure. For example, in the second paragraph of this story, he says Pacific Thoroughfare. Most people would just say peaceful street. You can figure out some of O. Henry's difficult words by examining their structure, by looking at context clues, or by thinking of words that the unfamiliar word resembles. Pacific, for example, resembles pacifist, a person who loves peace. It also resembles pacifier, the device you give babies to keep them peaceful. As you read After 20 Years, keep a sheet of paper next to each page so that you can record your thoughts. Pause after the 6th paragraph, after the face of the man in the doorway is revealed. From the description of this man, what do you guess he is like? What do you predict is going to happen next? One student's comments appear on the first page, showing her dialogue with the text. So again, guys, this is why we keep our Talking to the Text paper with us, to keep our dialogue, our inner thoughts going as we read the story. The last thing that we are going to take a look at in this flipped lesson is the Meet the Writer section on page 197 of your textbook. Again, if you have your textbook, please turn to that page now. If you do not have your textbook, just listen along. O. Henry, 1862 to 1910, is the pen name of William Sidney Porter, who was born in Greensboro, North Carolina. He left school at 15 and eventually moved to Texas. There, he edited a humor magazine called The Rolling Stone and worked for a few years in a bank in Austin. Unfortunately, Porter was a careless record keeper. 2 years after he left the bank, he was accused of embezzling its money. Although he was probably innocent, Porter panicked and ran off to Honduras. A year or so later, he returned to Austin to be with his dying wife. There he was convicted and spent 3 years in a federal prison in Ohio. Porter found the plots of many of his stories, including After 20 Years, in jail. He may also have found his famous pen name there. The name of a prison guard was Orrin Henry. After he was released from prison in 1901, Porter moved to New York. Soon, as O. Henry, he became one of the country's most popular short story writers. His stories are known for their snappy surprise endings. Many of his best-known stories are set in New York's streets and tenements and cheap hotels. One day, while O. Henry was dining with friends at a New York restaurant, a young writer asked him where he got his plots. "Oh, everywhere," replied Henry. "There are stories in everything." He picked up the menu on which the dishes of the day were typewritten. "There's a story in this," he said, and then he outlined the story called Springtime a la carte. On menus, a la carte means that each item is priced separately. More from the pen of O. Henry. After 20 Years is from a collection called 4 Million and Other Stories. This title refers to the population of New York City in O. Henry's day. Other O. Henry stories set in New York include The Gift of the Magi and The Last Leaf. So, now that we know a little bit of background information about our writer, let's take a moment, flip through back to the beginning of our story, page 192 and 193, and write down a prediction in your prediction section of the Talking to the Text paper. What do you think this story is going to be about? Make sure when you arrive to class tomorrow that you are prepared and ready to discuss your letter that you wrote to Confused and Can't Sleep. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow this page.